What's going on, you guys, and welcome to the channel. Hope you all are having a fantastic day so far. Today we're going to be taking a look at an old school Dell Inspiron. This is a DDR3 system that was destined for e-waste. It was going to be recycled. Thankfully, I was able to snag this thing for 15 bucks. Super cool score. So let's go ahead, take a look at this thing, see what we're working with, get it hooked up, and see if it works. Alright, you guys, so this is the system that we are dealing with. This is a Dell Inspiron. Says that we're rocking an i5. Not sure how much RAM we're dealing with, or if it has a hard drive or an SSD. I know nothing about this system. First impressions of this thing are, we do have some white blotches going on the front right here. Not sure what that is. I'm sure we'll clean up nice. Aside from that, our front panel is definitely separated from the main chassis here, but I'm sure we can fix that. If you come to the back here, you'll see that we have absolutely nothing going on. We have no graphics card. We have a tiny little PSU, probably a slim PSU, but with a low profile graphics card, this thing should be perfectly fine. This is a Dell Inspiron 3650, so this thing shouldn't be too bad. If anything, this has probably like a 3rd or 4th gen i5, so I bet you that we can definitely rock some games on this thing. So I'm gonna get you guys set up. We're gonna get this thing all hooked up and see if we can get a post. Alright, so we have this old Dell all nice and hooked up. Let's go ahead and turn this thing on and see if we can't get a post. So it looks like with this front panel being all loose, I'm gonna have to sneak my finger in here because power button is not working. So obviously it's not reaching the power switch on the inside. So let's go ahead and sneak my thumb in there, and we got power. Right off the bat, I hear a weird noise on the inside. That does not sound good. But let's see if we can get a picture on the screen. That definitely does not sound good. So we do have a flashing yellow light. If you wait a second here, you will see it start flashing. So it looks like we are not going to get a post, so we're going to go ahead and unhook this thing, pop off this panel, and see what we got going on the inside. Alright, so we got this thing on the operating table. Let's go ahead and pop this panel off. We are missing the screws on the back, so it should just pop right off. Alright, let's go ahead and pop our front panel off here. It's nice and clean, but as you can see, we do have the white spots going on. We'll go ahead and clean that off. Not a big deal. So with these systems, this should just fold right on out. And there we go. So right off the bat, what I'm noticing is these wires were resting on our CPU cooler here. That's probably what was making that noise. Second, we are missing RAM modules in here as well. So we're gonna go ahead and get a couple RAM sticks in here and then try and repost this thing. All right, folks, so I have 2 sticks of DDR3 1600 4 gig sticks. This is G-Skill. This should be perfect for our testing today. We're gonna go ahead, get these installed, and see if we can't get this thing to post. All right, so with the side panel off and the front panel off, it gives me a little bit easier access to see what's going on the inside and our power switch right here. Let's go ahead and see if we can't get a post on the screen now. So we do have our power light here. Hopefully it will give us some kind of signs of life. All right, so for some reason it did not like this kit of RAM. I went ahead and stuck in a single 8 gig stick of RAM, and now it posts. So very lucky. I'm not sure what is up with this kit of RAM. I know that it works perfectly fine. The kit of RAM that I'm using right now, I do believe is 1333 megahertz. So maybe the 1600 was too much for it. I'm honestly not sure. It should have just defaulted back to whatever it is compatible with running. So very strange. I did go ahead and I moved the cords. We don't have a weird noise going on the inside anymore, but I do hear the fan really starting to ramp up. So this thing is probably running pretty warm. So let's go ahead and get into the BIOS and see if we can't check our temps and see what we got going on. Another thing, it does say Dell Support Assist has detected a failing component. That is probably the RAM that I had previously installed. Alright, so we are now in the BIOS, and we are actually working with an i5 6400 CPU. So this absolutely should have been able to handle that kit of RAM. So not sure what's up with that. That's very strange. Let's see if we can't get into our hardware monitor and see what we got going on. That fan is definitely ramping up. It sounds like it's overheating really bad. And I am not seeing anything for hardware monitor. Okay, so the RAM stick that I did install is in fact 1600 megahertz, so I'm not sure why the kit of RAM that I had previously installed did not work. That's really weird. I'm wondering if we might have a dead channel on this motherboard, but I will do further testing and find that out. There is no hardware monitor on here to see what we're working with in terms of temps, so unfortunately we're gonna have to check all that stuff on our MSI Afterburner once we get everything squared away with this system. So once again, I'm gonna get you guys set up and we're gonna go ahead and tear this thing apart. All right, so we have this thing laid back down on the operating table. I do have my RAM stick removed. This thing it's relatively clean on the inside. There's quite a bit of dust on the cooler here, a little bit on the fan over here, but aside from that, it's pretty damn clean. A few things I want to note: this is one of those proprietary systems. I hate working with these. It's just, the upgrade path on these is so limited, it is complete BS. The only good component about this system would have been the CPU and the RAM. The rest of it, in my opinion, it's for desktop use. However, the CPU in here, paired with the right amount of RAM and a decent GPU, we should be able to get some decent gaming performance out of this thing. So we're gonna go ahead and get this thing torn apart and get it nice and clean and see what kind of games this thing can run. All right, so we got this thing all nice and cleaned off, looking nice and pretty, along with our CPU cooler as well. So this is a 4-core, 4-thread CPU. It does have a max turbo frequency of right around 3.3 gigahertz. The base frequency, I believe, is like right around 2.7, so not bad. It does have a TDP of 65 watts, so it's not the most power-hungry CPU, but it should definitely perform for entry-level gaming. So we're gonna go ahead and get some new thermal paste on here, get this thing back together, and see what kind of games we can run. All right, so we do have a nice dab of thermal paste on there. We're gonna go ahead and get our cooler back on. All right, so now that we have this thing all back together, looking nice and super pretty, we're gonna go ahead and take a look at some of the upgrades that I plan on putting in here. All right, so first up, we have a kit of Crucial Ballistics 1600 megahertz DDR3 RAM. This is a 16 gig kit. Again, I do not know if one of these channels is dead, so I got my fingers crossed that these are gonna actually work in this system. If not, we are gonna run a single 8 gig kit and see what happens. Now, for my Eagle Eye friends, I don't know if anybody noticed before, but I did in fact have this plugged in to do our initial testing to get this thing to actually show picture on the screen. I could not get picture through the motherboard HDMI port. So this is a EVGA GTX 1050. This is a 2 gig card. This should do our CPU plenty justice. In fact, this can handle a much better graphics card, but since we're working with the power supply that we're working with that has 0 power connectors, this is the best low profile graphics card that I have. So when I come back, this thing is going to be all together and ready to game. All right, ladies and gents, we got this soul gal all back together and she's looking so much better. I was able to get most of that white crap off the front. There's a few little nicks here that obviously that's not going to wipe away, but man, this thing looks freaking awesome. I like how compact and small and space friendly this thing is. So let's go ahead, let's power this thing on and see if it's going to boot into the SSD. All right, so our fans are spinning up. Do we get picture on the screen? And we got picture on the screen. So when I come back, we're gonna have a bunch of games installed on here and we're gonna be ready to test this thing. All right, so we are into our first game, folks. This is a game called Sons of the Forest. This is definitely a good one to test to see what your system can really do. So far, we're running between 35 and 40 FPS, 100% playable. This is all low settings. We are playing at 1080p, and this thing it's chugging along. It's running fantastic. I would absolutely say this is 100% playable. Even when we get into the forest here and get all these extra added textures, it runs absolutely perfect. So far, we are running 72C on our GPU with 99% utilization. Our CPU is running at a cool 57, I would say between 52 and 60C. It's running great. This is a phenomenal result so far. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next game. All right, so next up is a game called Grounded. This is a first or third person survival adventure game. Super cool, super fun. Think of it as like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Essentially, you're a kid that was just shrunk down to the size of an ant. You're pretty small. all this forestry around me that you're seeing, this is all grass. So definitely an interesting type of game. I just downloaded the game. I'm still learning it, but it seems pretty fun so far. This is a rather demanding game. I am playing at all low settings. We have textures turned down to 80%, so that's definitely helping. But check this out. We're running right around 60 FPS. That's not bad at all. Our GPU is absolutely toasty though. Our CPU is running fairly nice and cool, but we are getting 100% utilization on our GPU again, so I would say so far this system, it's running pretty goddamn good. I honestly wish that I could fit in a better graphics card. I would almost guarantee that this system would perform light years better than what it is right now. But again, super cool game, super fun. If you haven't heard of it, go ahead and check it out. On to game number 3. Alright, so game number 3 is a game called Palworld. If you haven't checked out this game before, you guys gotta check this one out. This is such a good game. In my opinion, this has some of the best base building mechanics in all of survival games. This is a huge open world survival style game where you can essentially go around catching what's called pals. They're a lot like Pokemon, but it's also a lot different. This is a rather demanding game, as most of the games that I test usually are, and it's running right around 60 FPS. We have 70C on our GPU, we got 56 to 60C on our CPU, and yeah, we're running between 50 and 60 FPS. It's running absolutely perfect. I have all medium and low settings, and we are testing at 1080p, and yeah, totally playable experience. Not bad at all. This is one of my all-time favorite games at the moment. This is one that I've been playing a ton. And I'm telling you guys, if you haven't tried Palworld, you have got to give it a shot. Huge shout out to these guys. Let's go ahead and move on to our last game. Alright you guys, so up next is Assetto Corsa. I love playing this game. It looks so freaking good. We are playing at all medium and high settings, and it is running absolutely phenomenal. Check this out. We're getting over 100 FPS, almost 130. Our GPU is chilling right around 60C, CPU right around 50C, and we're getting close enough to say that we're getting about 100% utilization on our GPU. Absolutely phenomenal result for this PC. Now, I do want to point out one thing, that with this particular CPU, I can actually upgrade it to a different platform and run DDR4, get a better power supply, and a much nicer graphics card, and this thing would be a sleeper budget beast. Another thing I would like to point out is if I were to have a 1050 Ti, the 4 gig model of this GPU, we would get even more performance. We'd probably be closer around, 150 to 200 FPS in this game anyways, and probably much higher FPS in all the other games. But with these parts and what we're using right now, this is a great outcome, and this is a budget gaming beast. I'm sure somebody down in the comments will be like, no, don't suggest anybody to get that. Nah, if you're looking to get into PC gaming, picking something like this up for super cheap, you can find the system for under $100 with a graphics card. This is perfect entry level to determine whether or not you want to get into PC gaming. Alright folks, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. This was a super fun one for me. I love doing these systems. I cannot get enough of this. I love doing these older systems and seeing what they can do. If you're working with a limited budget, something like this, 100% plausible. Until next time, you guys, I look forward to catching you in the next one. Stay safe in the world.